Zara was not just any alien. She was one of the most beautiful and intelligent diplomats from the Andromeda galaxy, chosen for a very important mission. Her race, the Zorvans, had been observing Earth for centuries, waiting for the right moment. To make contact, Zara was sent with a clear goal: to charm a human and secure an alliance between their planet and Earth. From the moment she arrived, she felt the weight of her mission. Zara had always prided herself on her professionalism, her ability to stay focused, to maintain a cool and calm exterior. But Earth was different. The people were unpredictable, emotional, and full of strange habits and feelings that were hard to understand. She stood on the balcony of her spacecraft, watching the bustling city below. The skyscrapers gleamed under the bright sun, and the streets were crowded with people. She had been briefed on human society, their love for technology, their curiosity about space, their complicated emotional relationships. Yet, nothing had prepared her for the complexities of human behavior she was about to face. Zara's task was simple: charm one human enough to form an alliance. The Zorvans were not interested in Earth's resources. They wanted something more: valuable knowledge. They had sent Zara to secure a pact, one that would allow them to share human advancements in science, medicine, and technology. This would ensure that their race could continue to thrive for centuries to come. But there was a problem. Zara hadn't been told everything. What was her purpose if not to win the trust of a human, to seduce and then gain control? This mission had been designed to manipulate, and Zara, a woman who valued logic above all, began to question if it was right. Was she just a tool in the hands of her superiors? She closed her eyes, trying to push the uncomfortable thoughts aside. This mission had been approved by the highest authority in her galaxy. Her race's survival depended on it. It was for the greater good, but why did it feel so wrong? A soft beep interrupted her thoughts. The briefing on the human she was supposed to charm had arrived. His name was Daniel Mitchell, a human scientist who had recently made waves in the field of space exploration. His research on quantum physics and intergalactic travel was groundbreaking. And Zara's superiors believed that gaining his trust would open the doors to a vast trove of knowledge. Zara would be the one to make that connection. The document on her datapad listed his achievements, his habits, and even his personal preferences. He was not married, which made him the perfect candidate for Zara's assignment. His work had recently attracted attention from international space agencies, and his reputation had skyrocketed. He was exactly what the Zorvans needed: someone influential, someone who could help open the way for their long-term goals. Zara read through the file, her mind racing. How could she approach him? Would he see through her facade? Would he sense her true intentions? She had always been taught to stay calm, to control her emotions, and to use her charm as a weapon. But what if this mission was more than just a simple diplomatic exercise? Her superiors had made it clear this was not about feelings. It was about achieving the objective at any cost. Yet Zara could not shake the feeling that something more was at play here. A moment later, the spacecraft's AI informed her that the meeting with Daniel was set. She had to leave now. The time for questions and doubts was over. She was a diplomat, and she had a mission to complete. As Zara prepared to meet Daniel, she felt a strange sensation in her chest. Was it excitement, fear, or something else? Had never allowed herself to feel anything that could cloud her judgment yet. But as she looked at the human's file again, she began to feel something she had never experienced before. Curiosity. What would he be like? Would he be as intelligent and charming as the report suggested? Or would he be more unpredictable, like so many humans were? Zara had no answers. But she knew one thing for certain. This mission would change everything. She took a deep breath and straightened her uniform. She was ready. The success of her people depended on this encounter. And if she had to charm Daniel Mitchell to save her race, then that's exactly what she would do. But as Zara boarded the shuttle that would take her to the meeting, she couldn't help but wonder, would she still be able to keep her emotions in check? Or would this mission be unlike any she had ever completed before? The door of the shuttle closed behind her, and with a final glance at the stars outside, Zara prepared herself for what lay ahead. She was about to meet Daniel Mitchell, and her life would never be the same. Zara's shuttle descended toward Earth with an unshakable sense of anticipation hanging in the air. As the spacecraft touched down on the green Earth beneath her, she couldn't help but marvel at the planet's beauty, its oceans, forests, and sprawling cities. This wasn't the cold, sterile environment of her homeworld. This was vibrant, alive, and filled with complexities she hadn't quite prepared for. The moment the shuttle doors opened, a gust of Earth's air filled her lungs, carrying with it the smells of the city food, fresh-cut grass, and the faint temps of pollution. It was all so ... different. She quickly adjusted her uniform and exited, her eyes scanning the busy street as her mission was about to begin. Daniel Mitchell stood in front of the research facility. His tall figure was slightly hunched over, likely from a long night of work. Zara's gaze fixed on him instantly. This was the human, she thought. Tall, dark-haired. Wearing a simple yet professional outfit, he appeared nothing like the young, ambitious scientist she had read about. No, there was something deeper in his eyes. Something that told Zara this was not going to be as straightforward as she had imagined. She approached him with purpose, her steps calculated, smooth. But as she drew nearer, something in her chest tightened. Daniel looked up, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. It wasn't the usual polite, distant gaze she was accustomed to. It was intense, searching, as if he could see right through her, Dr. Mitchell. Zara's voice was soft but firm, smooth, like polished glass, a perfect blend of elegance and authority. I am Zara. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Daniel blinked, his face flickering with confusion for a second. He didn't offer his hand immediately. Instead, he studied her for a moment, his brow furrowing. You're not exactly what I expected, Zara smiled gently. I hope I'm more impressive in person than in my file. Impressive, Daniel repeated, his tone laced with curiosity. I was expecting someone from the council, not. Well, you. Zara could sense his skepticism. But she wasn't here for small talk. She had a mission to fulfill, and she had to do it quickly. Her charm, honed over years of training, would be her weapon, and she was determined to use it to its fullest. But as she watched Daniel, something unexpected stirred inside her. He wasn't just another subject to manipulate. There was something about him that made her want to understand him beyond the task at hand. The air between them was thick with an unspoken tension, and for a moment neither spoke. Zara tried to push the growing feeling of discomfort away. She had a job to do, but it was hard to focus on the mission when the human standing in front of her seemed so ... intriguing. Assume you've heard of the Zorvans? Zara asked, breaking the silence. She couldn't help but feel her voice falter, slightly something she had never allowed before. Her tone remained calm, but there was an undeniable flicker of hesitation. Daniel nodded, but his eyes were fixed on her, sharp and attentive. I've read some reports, and I've heard rumors, but nothing concrete. Good, Zara replied, her eyes narrowing. Then we can start fresh. I'm here to help. The Zorvans have a unique proposal for humanity, and I believe you, Dr. Mitchell, are the key to ensuring its success. Daniel tilted his head, intrigued but cautious. And what's the catch? Zara let out a small laugh, though it felt odd. On her tongue, no catch, I assure you. We seek knowledge, a mutual exchange. Your research is of great interest to us. But the words felt hollow to her as she spoke them. Why was she doing this? Why was she here to manipulate him? She had spent her life perfecting this role of a diplomat, but for the first time, she felt a slight sting of guilt. It was a feeling she didn't recognize, one that made her question the very core of her existence. As they continued to converse, Zara couldn't help but notice the spark of curiosity in Daniel's eyes. He was intelligent more so than she had expected, and there was something magnetic about him. She had been trained to make humans fall for her, to sway them with her charm. But this human wasn't like the others. He wasn't immediately swayed by her beauty or words. In fact, he seemed to be more interested in her mind than her appearance, which was a rarity in humans. The day passed quickly as they toured his research facility. Zara had expected to be focused entirely on her mission, but Daniel's questions were unexpected. He asked about her thoughts on quantum physics, her views on the future of space travel, and even her perspective on the relationship between science and ethics. Zara answered each question carefully, never revealing too much of herself. But with each exchange, she found herself drawn into his world. She had been trained to distance herself from her emotions. But something about Daniel's passion for science, his genuine curiosity, made her feel something she hadn't felt before. It was during the final moments of their meeting when Zara realized something important. She wasn't just an alien diplomat to him, to Daniel. She was a person, a complex, intelligent individual. And that thought unsettled her in ways she couldn't explain. As they said their goodbyes, Zara felt her mission shift. She wasn't just playing the part anymore. This was real. And for the first time, Zara wasn't sure if she was prepared. For what lay ahead, would she stay true to her mission, or would her growing feelings for Daniel cloud her judgment? As she left the facility, her heart raced, not just from the intensity of the encounter, but from the uncertainty of what was to come. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind to Zara. Each encounter with Daniel seemed to unravel something deeper within her. The mission she had once viewed as a straightforward diplomatic assignment now felt more like a tightrope walk. Each conversation with him, each glance, each moment of silence between them, pulled her further away from the cold, calculated diplomat she had once been. Zara had always been in control. Her people valued logic, precision, and a strict adherence to the mission. But here, in Daniel's presence, something shifted. He wasn't the typical human she had expected. He wasn't easily impressed by her beauty or her charm. Instead, he seemed to want to understand her, the real her, the one she kept hidden under layers of professionalism and composure. One evening, they sat in a quiet corner of a cafe, a place Daniel frequented to relax after long hours of research. The room was cozy, with warm lighting and the soft murmur of other customers around them. Zara had never felt more out of place. She wasn't accustomed to such casual settings, and her mind was still focused on the mission, but there was something in Daniel's calm demeanor that made her feel ... human. And for the first time in her life, that felt strange. "Tell me something about Zorvons," Daniel said, his voice warm yet inquisitive. "Something not in the reports. What's it like to be from a place so far away from Earth?" Zara hesitated. She had been trained to avoid personal questions, to deflect any inquiries that might reveal too much about her true nature. But Daniel's question lingered in her mind, and for reasons she couldn't understand. She found herself wanting to answer him honestly. Re, 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 read, 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 read. "Not very different from you," she began, her voice soft, as if testing the words. "We value knowledge, exploration, and growth. But we also understand the weight of survival. My people have always looked to the stars for answers. And now we've come to Earth because your species holds knowledge we need." Daniel leaned forward, his eyes searching hers. "That sounds very ... impersonal. Surely there's more to it than just knowledge, Zara. What about the people of your world? What's it like growing up there?" Zara was caught off guard. She had never spoken of her childhood, never allowed herself to connect with anyone like this before, but something in Daniel's eyes made her want to share. She sighed, a hint of vulnerability breaking through her usual composure. "Zorvons grow up in structured environments. We're trained from a young age to be efficient, to prioritize the survival of our species. Emotions aren't encouraged, as they can cloud judgment." She paused, feeling a strange sensation in her chest. "We're taught to be ... perfect." Daniel smiled, but there was a sadness behind his expression. "I can't imagine what that must be like. Emotions, they're what make us ... human, right?"
Right.
the sciences of it, all the confusion, the joy, the pain that gives life meaning. Zara's gaze softened as she studied him, her mind racing. The way he spoke, so openly, so warmly, was unlike anything she had encountered before. His words felt like a balm to her rigid, emotionally distant nature. For the first time in years, Zara questioned her own beliefs. Was it possible that emotions had meaning beyond weakness? Could they actually shape the choices she made? The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but Zara's thoughts lingered on Daniel's words. She found herself looking at him differently now. There was something comforting about the way he saw the world, a world full of emotions, so full of potential. She had always believed that Zorvans were the superior beings, that their focus on logic and efficiency made them stronger. But now, sitting across from Daniel, she was beginning to see the strength in his vulnerability. As the evening drew to a close, they stepped outside into the cool night air. The stars above twinkled brightly as if mocking Zara for her inner conflict. She should have been focused on her mission, on the goal she was sent here to achieve. Yet here she was, lost in thoughts about a human, questioning everything she had ever known. Daniel turned to her, his voice breaking through her thoughts. "I'm glad we did this, Zara. You've made the mission feel less like a task and more like an actual conversation." Zara swallowed, feeling a knot form in her throat. She didn't know how to respond. "I'm glad too, Daniel." For a moment they simply stood there, the silence between them comfortable yet charged with an unspoken tension. Zara knew she had to stay detached, to remember the purpose of her visit to Earth. But her growing feelings for Daniel made it increasingly difficult to do so. "Until next time then?" Daniel asked, his tone hopeful. Zara nodded, though her heart weighed heavy. Until next time. As she watched him walk away, she felt a strange emptiness inside her. She had gone from seeing Daniel as nothing more than a mission objective to someone who had begun to matter to her. And for someone like Zara, who had spent her life keeping her emotions locked away, that was a terrifying realization. What would happen when the mission became impossible to separate from her feelings? Would she be able to keep her heart in check, or would it lead her down a path she couldn't return from? The days blurred together as Zara continued her interactions with Daniel, each meeting leaving a deeper mark on her than the last. What had once been a straightforward mission to charm and manipulate was now a delicate dance, a balancing act between her true purpose and the unexpected feelings stirring inside her. She had known this would be complicated. She never expected it to feel like this. It was during a late-night meeting, after an exhausting day of discussing interstellar research, that Zara realized just how far she had strayed from her original intentions. They were sitting together in Daniel's lab, surrounded by holographic models of galaxies and space-time distortions. The soft hum of machinery filled the background, but for Zara, everything seemed to quiet down as she focused solely on him. Daniel was explaining a new theory. He had been developing a theory about wormholes and their potential to change human space travel forever. His passion was evident, and Zara found herself captivated not just by his intelligence, but by his sheer enthusiasm. His words were filled with excitement, and his hands moved animatedly as he spoke, outlining his ideas. In the air, Zara had always admired intelligence, but something in Daniel's approach to life made her feel drawn to him in a way she couldn't explain. There was something so genuine about him, so human. The way he poured his heart into his work, his passion for discovery, his openness to new ideas, it made her see a side of humanity she had never considered. It was messy, unpredictable, but alive. Zara forced herself to focus on the conversation. "Your theory is fascinating," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It could change the way we approach space travel entirely." "You're onto something big, Daniel." Daniel smiled, his eyes lighting up. "You think so?" Clearly pleased by her acknowledgement. "I mean, it's just a theory, but if we could figure out how to stabilize the wormholes, it could open up so many possibilities. Imagine being able to travel vast distances in seconds. We could explore the entire galaxy." Zara nodded, but her thoughts weren't on the theory anymore. As Daniel continued to speak, Zara's gaze drifted to his lips. They were soft, slightly parted as he spoke, and Zara felt a sudden, inexplicable urge to close the distance between them. She quickly looked away, trying to calm the racing thoughts in her head. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was here for a purpose, not to lose herself in a human. But Daniel wasn't just any human. He wasn't like the others Zara had encountered in her briefings. He wasn't dazzled by her appearance, nor was he easily swayed by her charm. He didn't fall for the typical tactics she used to win trust and influence. Instead, he listened. He engaged. And he challenged her in a way she never anticipated. It was that challenge, his ability to see through her, that drew her in as the evening wore on. The conversation took a natural turn toward more personal topics. They shared stories about their lives, their worlds, and the strange quirks that made them who they were. Zara spoke of her home planet, her childhood in the sterile environments of Zorvan society, and the rigorous training that shaped her into the diplomat she had become. "I was raised to be perfect," she admitted, her voice quiet. "We're taught to avoid anything that could distract us from the mission emotions, attachments, personal desires. They're seen as weaknesses, things that can cloud judgment." Daniel leaned back, his eyes thoughtful. "That sounds like a heavy burden to carry. I can't imagine what it must be like to grow up like that." Zara felt something stir within her, a warmth, an openness she had never allowed herself to feel before. "It is," she said softly, looking away, "but I've learned to accept it. I was taught that emotions could be controlled, and if they couldn't, they were irrelevant." Daniel's gaze softened as he looked at her. There was something in his eyes, something kind, something understanding. "But Zara, emotions aren't irrelevant. They shape us, guide us, and even when they're messy, they make us who we are. You can't just ignore them no matter how much you try." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, Zara felt as if the world had stopped. She had always believed that emotions were a weakness, that they were something to be controlled, something to be erased from the equation. But Daniel's words, his simple yet profound understanding of the human experience, cracked open a part of her she hadn't known existed. She quickly stood up, her mind racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't part of the plan. She was supposed to keep her distance, to remain detached. But as she looked at Daniel, she realized something she hadn't wanted to admit to herself. She wasn't just here to manipulate him anymore. She was beginning to care about him. "Zara." Daniel's voice cut through her thoughts. "Are you okay?" She turned to face him, forcing a smile. "I'm fine," she said, though the words felt hollow. It's been a long day." Daniel didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. Instead, he stood up, walking toward her. "I'm glad we're talking like this. I know it's hard for you, being so far from home, having to hide part of yourself. But I want you to know, you don't have to be perfect around me." Zara felt a lump form in her throat. His words, so simple yet so sincere, echoed in her mind. She didn't know how to respond. The diplomat inside her screamed to maintain control, to push away the feelings that were surfacing. But the part of her that had spent years suppressing emotions, the part that had learned to hide behind the mask of professionalism, was slowly crumbling in the face of Daniel's honesty. For the first time, Zara didn't want to be perfect. She just wanted to be real, as they stood there. The tension between them palpable, Zara realized the mission was no longer just about securing an alliance. It was about something far more complicated, far more dangerous. She had started to care for Daniel. And that was something she never could have anticipated. Would she still be able to complete her mission, or had she already crossed a line from which there was no return? The days after their conversation felt like a haze to Zara. Each time she met Daniel, each moment spent with him, the lines between her mission and her growing emotions blurred further. She had always prided herself on her discipline, her ability to compartmentalize, to maintain control over every situation. But Daniel, his kindness, his intellect, his honesty was slowly breaking down the walls she had built around herself. It was late one evening when the unthinkable happened. Zara was walking through the quiet corridors of the research facility, her mind racing as she prepared for another round of meetings with Daniel. The past few days had been full of revelations about humanity, about Daniel, and most unsettling of all, about herself. She had never expected this mission to be anything more than a simple diplomatic assignment. She was supposed to be a detached observer, a professional who would charm her way into Daniel's trust, extract the knowledge the Zorvons needed, and then return home. Mission complete. But now, Zara wasn't sure if she could go back to being that person. As she passed the lab, she caught sight of Daniel through the large glass windows. He was seated at his desk, working tirelessly on his research, his face illuminated by the soft glow of his computer screens. The sight was oddly comforting, and for a brief moment, Zara allowed herself to simply watch him, her thoughts swirling. Suddenly, her datapad beeped loudly, breaking her moment of peace. She glanced down at the screen to see a message from her superiors. It was an urgent directive one that made her heart skip a beat. The message was clear. Zara, you are to report immediately. We have detected an anomaly in your mission. You are instructed to complete your assignment and return to the Zorvan fleet within 24 hours. The message ended with a cryptic line, "Do not let emotions cloud your judgment. Complete the mission, or you will face the consequences." Zara felt her breath catch in her throat. The weight of the message pressed heavily on her chest, and she suddenly felt as if the floor beneath her had disappeared. She had known deep down that there would come a moment like this, when the mission would demand she set aside her feelings and her growing attachment to Daniel. But the abruptness of the directive hit her like a slap in the face. She had thought she could handle it, that she could remain the perfect diplomat, the one who always followed orders. But now, standing there with the message in her hand, she realized just how much had changed. What had she done? As Zara walked slowly towards the entrance of Daniel's lab, her thoughts were in turmoil. She had been sent to Earth to secure an alliance, to gain control of the knowledge humanity had to offer, but she had started to care about Daniel, about the man she was supposed to manipulate. In her attempts to keep her emotions in check, she had unknowingly allowed them to take root, to grow in a way that now seemed impossible to ignore. When she entered the lab, Daniel looked up, his expression shifting from focused concentration to mild surprise. "Zara, what's wrong?" he asked, noticing the change in her demeanor. His voice was soft, as if sensing that something was off. Zara opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She felt like she was suffocating, trapped between two worlds, the world of her people, with their cold logic and strict rules, and the world of her feelings, which had begun to bleed into her every thought and action. She had never imagined that this mission would lead her to such a crossroads, and now she was facing an impossible choice. "Zara, done." Daniel's voice was quieter now, a hint of concern lacing his words. He rose from his chair, walking toward her, his presence somehow grounding. For a brief moment, Zara considered telling him everything the truth about who she was, about the Zorvons, about her mission. But the thought of revealing the full extent of her deception made her stomach turn. Yeah. She had become so entangled in the web of lies that she didn't know how to untangle herself without tearing everything apart. I have to go," Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. The words felt like a betrayal, even though she knew they were the truth. She had received the order. The mission was almost complete. She was supposed to leave, to finish what she had started and never look back. Daniel's brow furrowed, confusion written all over his face. "Go? What do you mean, go? You're not leaving already, are you?" Zara couldn't answer him right away. She couldn't bring herself to say the words, to admit that she had failed. In the one thing she had always prided herself on, remaining emotionally detached, she had allowed herself to feel, and now she was paying the price. I don't know," she stammered, her voice trembling. I have to leave. It's complicated." Daniel reached out, his hand hovering just inches from hers. There was a vulnerability in his eyes, a mix of hurt and confusion that Zara couldn't ignore. For the first time, she saw the depth of his feelings for her, and it made her heart ache in ways she couldn't explain. "Zara," he said softly, his voice breaking through the haze of her thoughts, "I don't understand. Why are you doing this? What's going on? You're not just some mission, are you?" The question hit her like a lightning bolt, and Zara froze. Was she just a mission to him? Was that all she had ever been to him? A tool to get what the Zorvans wanted? She had tried so hard to keep him at arm's length, to maintain the distance between them. But in that moment, she realized just how deeply she had allowed him into her heart, and then it hit her. Zara was pregnant. The realization felt like a punch to the gut. The truth was undeniable, and the shock of it threatened to overwhelm her. She had never planned for this, was never part of the mission. But somehow, without meaning to, she had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. I'm sorry, Daniel, Zara whispered, feeling the weight of her own betrayal pressing down on her. I never meant for any of this to happen. The days after Zara's revelation were filled with turmoil. The weight of her pregnancy, combined with the pressure of her mission, pressed heavily on her shoulders. She could no longer deny the fact that her feelings for Daniel had shifted, from mere professional curiosity to something far more profound. This was no longer about the Zorvans' needs or the cold efficiency of her people's mission. This was about her, a woman struggling with the complex emotions she had long suppressed. Now crashing through her carefully constructed walls, Daniel had been quiet since that night in the lab, his eyes constantly searching hers for answers, but Zara couldn't bring herself to give him the truth. She couldn't tell him that the life she had thought was destined for one purpose had completely changed, that the child growing inside her, a human child, wasn't part of the plan, that everything she had built this mission on now felt like a lie. It was another late night when Daniel finally confronted her. He had been patient, but his patience had worn thin. He had noticed her distance, her lack of focus, her unwillingness to engage in their usual conversations. It was clear to him that something was terribly wrong, Zara, Daniel said, his voice low but firm as he stepped into the lab, where she was once again absorbed in a sea of data. We need to talk. You've been avoiding me for days. I can see it, and I know you feel it too. Zara didn't turn to him immediately. Instead, she continued to study the glowing data points on her screen, as if they could offer any solace to the chaos in her mind. She had to hold it together, just a little longer. Her mission wasn't over. She couldn't let it unravel just because of feelings she couldn't control. Zara, please, Daniel persisted, his footsteps now louder in the quiet of the lab. Whatever it is, we can figure this out. But I need to know what's going on. I'm not stupid. I've seen the way you look at me. I know there's more to this than you're telling me. Zara finally turned, meeting his gaze for the first time in days. His eyes were full of concern, but there was also a vulnerability in them that made her stomach twist. He wasn't just concerned about the mission anymore. He was concerned about her, and that realization shook her to her core. I can't keep hiding it from you, Zara whispered, her voice barely audible. She took a shaky breath before continuing. I didn't come here for this. I didn't expect to feel this way about you. Daniel stepped closer, his hand reaching out too. Gently touch her arm. Then don't hide. You don't have to. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Zara swallowed hard. This was the moment. She could no longer keep the truth from him. The secret she had been hiding for weeks, the secret that had been gnawing at her conscience, could no longer remain buried. I'm pregnant, she finally confessed, her voice trembling. I didn't plan for this. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did, and I don't know what to do. For a moment there was nothing but silence. The world outside the lab seemed to stop as Daniel absorbed her words. His hand dropped from her arm, his expression unreadable as he took a step back. You're pregnant? He asked, his voice low and unsure, as if trying to make sense of the impossible. Ow. I mean, you're an alien, Zara. This doesn't make any sense. Zara closed her eyes, tears welling up against her will. I never expected this, Daniel. I've been trained my whole life to avoid emotions, to avoid things like this. But it's real. I don't know how to fix it. I don't even know what to do with myself anymore. Daniel remained silent, his gaze flickering from her face to the floor, processing the weight of her confession. For the first time since their meeting, he looked vulnerable, truly human in his uncertainty. He wasn't just a scientist anymore. He was a man grappling with the fact that the woman he had come to care for was now caught between two worlds. Her duty to her people and the unexpected life they had created together? "What does this mean, Zara?" Daniel asked quietly, his voice filled with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "What happens now? Are you going to leave? You go back to your people?" Zara shook her head, her voice breaking. "I don't know. I never expected this to happen. I don't know how to be what they want me to be anymore. I don't even know how to be what I am supposed to be for you." Daniel stepped forward again, this time with more resolve. His hand gently cupped her face, wiping away the single tear that had fallen. "You don't have to be anything for me, Zara. I don't need you to be perfect. I don't need you to be someone you're not. But I need to know if you're going to let me in on this. Let me help you. We're in this together now, whether you like it or not." Zara closed her eyes, his touch grounding her as she fought to hold herself together. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know what was possible anymore. Her mission had been so clear in her mind for so long until now. "I don't know if I can stay here," Zara whispered, the words slipping out despite herself. "The Zorvan's my people there waiting for me. They're expecting me to come back with what they want. But now, ... Now, I don't even know what I want anymore." Daniel stood silently for a long time, contemplating her words. The silence between them wasn't awkward, but heavy with the weight of the truth they were both facing. Finally, he spoke again, his voice steady. "Then we figure it out. We face this together." Zara's heart thundered in her chest. The realization was overwhelming. She had been so sure of everything before. The Zorvans had a mission, and so did she? But now, standing here with Daniel, she was forced to confront the undeniable truth. She was torn between two worlds, and no matter what decision she made, there would be no turning back. The days following Zara's revelation were a blur of conflicting emotions. She had hoped that time would offer clarity, that some part of her, some corner of her mind, would present a logical answer to the chaos now swirling within her. But instead, everything had become more complicated. Zorvans had been clear in their message: complete the mission, return to us, or face the consequences. Yet, with every moment that passed, Zara felt the weight of the choice she now had to make. She was torn between two worlds. On one hand, there was the cold efficiency of her mission, her duty to her people, and the promise of a future based on knowledge and survival. On the other, there was Daniel, a human, whose intellect, kindness, an unyielding belief in her had cracked open a part of her that had long been sealed shut. He had shown her a world filled with emotions she had been taught to ignore, and despite her best efforts, she found herself longing for the very thing she had always been taught to suppress. The truth was undeniable. She could not return to the Zorvans. She couldn't leave Daniel, not when everything inside her screamed that staying was the only right thing to do. But the consequences of defying her orders were severe, and Zara knew that the Zorvans would not take kindly to betrayal. Her people were efficient and relentless. To them, disobedience was not just a failure, it was an act of war. Zara paced the small, quiet room in the research facility, her hands clenched at her sides as her mind raced. She glanced out the window at the stars, the same stars that had always been her guiding light, the stars that had called to her, offering promises of a better future for her species. Yet now, as she stared out into the vastness of space, she felt more lost than ever. Footsteps behind her interrupted her thoughts, and she turned to find Daniel standing in the doorway. His expression was unreadable, but there was a sadness in his eyes that mirrored her own. He had been quiet lately, waiting for her to make a decision, hoping that somehow she would find a way to reconcile the two worlds she was caught between. "Zara," he said softly, his voice breaking through the tension in the air. "I know what you're thinking, and I can't pretend to understand everything you're going through. But I need you to know something, whatever happens. I don't want you to feel like you have to choose between me and your people. You don't owe me anything." Zara's heart ached as she met his gaze. His words, though kind, only deepened her internal struggle. She hadn't wanted to hurt him, but in choosing him, she would be leaving behind everything she had ever known. She would be severing ties with her people, her planet, her entire existence. "I don't know what's worse," Zara whispered, more to herself than to him. To abandon the people I was raised to serve, or to abandon the feelings I've never been allowed to have. I don't know if I can be the person they want me to be anymore, but I don't know if I can be the person you want me to be either. Daniel took a slow step forward, his eyes locked on hers, his presence grounding her in ways she hadn't expected. I don't want you to be anyone other than who you are, Zara. If you stay here with me, I'll accept you for who you are without the mission, without the expectations. But it has to be your choice. You have to decide who you want to be. Zara felt the weight of his words settle deep inside her. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about the future she would create, the life she would choose to build. And for the first time since arriving on Earth, she realized something that terrified her wasn't just about the mission anymore. It was about her future, her freedom to live a life that was her own, not one dictated by the cold, unfeeling demands of her people. She turned back to the window, looking at the stars, the silent witnesses to the choices that had brought her. Here, the Zorvans had always been her world, her people, her mission. But in the vast expanse of space, Zara saw something else. Now she saw the potential for a different kind of future. One that wasn't governed by duty, but by choice. One where her emotions weren't a weakness, but the very thing that made her strong. I can't go back to them, Daniel, Zara said, her voice steady but resolute. I can't go back to a life that doesn't allow me to choose, to feel, to be free. I've been so focused on my mission that I lost sight of what it means to live. Daniel stepped closer, his hand gently touching hers. Then come with me, Zara. Let's figure it out together. We'll face whatever comes, but we'll do it as equals. We'll build a life that we can both be proud of. Zara felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sense of peace she had never known before. For the first time, she allowed herself to fully consider the life Daniel was offering, the life where she could be free, where she could be herself, and where her choices would be her own. As she met his gaze again, something deep inside her shifted. She had spent so long running from her emotions, from the messy, beautiful chaos of human life, that she had forgotten what it felt like to be truly alive, to love, to be loved, to be real. And now, for the first time, Zara realized that her future wasn't about her mission, it was about her choice, and she had chosen Daniel. I'm staying, Zara said, her voice full of quiet determination. I'm staying with you, no matter what happens next. Daniel smiled, the weight of their shared decision hanging in the air. But this time, there was no uncertainty, just a promise that they would face the future, whatever it held, together. As Zara stepped into his arms, she knew that the path ahead would be uncertain and filled with challenges. But for the first time, it was a path she was choosing for herself. And with that choice, she had finally found freedom.